All right. Hello and welcome everyone to another of the 2022 builds refreshes. Today we are going to be talking about Equinox. More specifically, we are going to be talking about Dayquinox because she's the only Equinox left. Equinox has two forms, but really she only has one form. So this is Dayquinox. On Equinox Prime, we have replaced Equinox's ability to switch between the two sides because Gloom pretty much does everything that Night Equinox does, but better in every way. So we don't need to switch to Night form. That's just unnecessary. Obviously, we do miss out on being able to use Rest because that is the case, but with Gloom, we don't really need Rest, and you can just put Rest on a number of other Warframes because that's the helmet ability you get from Equinox, and it's much better in other places anyhow. So, this build just focuses on turning on Maim and using Maim to kill a bunch of enemies whenever we have it built up. And then, of course, we have, Pacify and Provoke is on here, and Rest and Rage is on here. But Provoke and Rage, not really very useful. I will say that Provoke, you can, give your teammates strength, and that's pretty decent. 30% strength is not nothing, and that's good. And then also on Gloom, you can see we have this 54% slow. So, this build actually uses something that is a little unorthodox in order to be able to use Gloom really well and not have to build way more strength than this and be able to keep this build pretty chill. And that is a Parazon mod. So there are other ways to do this, but this build survives well enough on a 54% Gloom that you can set your Gloom up, set up your Maim, and because of the stun from whenever enemies interact with Maim while they're under the effect of Gloom and that being very long, you can very easily get a Parazon finisher, gain another 50% ability strength, and then recast Gloom, getting a much stronger slow. You do not have to do that. You can absolutely drop like Streamline and add a big chunk more strength, but I'm just saying what I do on this build. Other things of note, you really want to use Prime Sure-Footed on Equinox, and that is because she loves explosive weapons because she doesn't have a ton of AoE of her own, and she just likes weapons that kill a lot of guys to build up her Maim. And then other than that, we just need a good amount of range so that this is a nice, hefty radius. We got a 34-meter range on this, which is going to kill a lot of enemies. And then we are also running Adaptation because we are going to get hit, and we just need to mitigate that as much as we possibly can. And Adaptation helps us do that because, of course, we are using an Augur mod, so we can just put our shields back on. I will say, Brief Respite, definitely better than Corrosive Projection on this build in most cases, but I really haven't found that I am going to need Brief Respite, so I haven't switched to it. Also, one of the big things that Equinox hates is armor. She's not good at fighting against armor because Maim is bad against armor because it doesn't take the EHP, like the total effective health of enemies, into account whenever it's building up. So you get much less of a buildup than is going to be necessary to kill a bunch of enemies whenever you're killing armored enemies. So our usual test that we do, which is just, solo in the Kuva Fortress on the Steel Path, is really tough for showing off the DPS capabilities of Maim because normally it's better against, Infested and Corpus because you get much more bang for your buck, as it were. Also, in addition to that, this build is kind of more so meant to pair with another Equinox or more teammates because usually it's nice that they can benefit from Provoke, and also they can help you build up Maim, and then you can just pop Maim and just like wipe whole rooms. And then two Equinoxes together usually will build up Maim offset from one another, where they will pop Maim, and then popping that will fill up the other Equinox. The other Equinox turns it back on. That Equinox pops it, which fills the other Equinox. And then just, that back and forth forever. That's called Patty Cake Equinox. Usually Equinox is working with other Warframes. This totally can be played solo, though. We're using Arcane Energize, which is not super necessary. We're at max efficiency here, So like you can really not use this and be fine. They're also using arcane eruptions that whenever we pick up any energy pickups, we're going to knock down all the enemies around us that are going to be inside our gloom, which eruption and gloom in this case are exactly the same range pretty much. So they're going to be knocked down, or they're going to be stunned because they went into maim and got a slash proc and the stun that you can see here on them. So one way or another, enemies, not too big of a threat. But yeah, it's pretty simple. The way that maim works is for Equinox, you just turn it on. Then this AoE, any enemies that enter into it will be slash procced. We're just going to turn the 1 on here. Have Gloom running. Enemies are going to be slash procced. And then in the top right, you can see whenever enemies die, enemies that die inside of our AoE, we get a good chunk of their health as damage that we can then output. Now, this damage does get like spread out over the AoE whenever you pop this, so you're usually going to need more than like whatever the exact amount of EHP is that an enemy around you has. So keep that into account. But as you can see, we have like, 500,000 damage here. If we just pop it, it kills a bunch of guys. Didn't kill the heavies, but that's fine. Like, it just killing a ton of fodder enemies is quite all right. And usually the heavies, like, feeding what you need to kill the fodder enemies is pretty usual. But it allows you to go into a room, clean up all of like the non-important targets instantly, and get a bunch of drops from them and move on. But yeah, that's what's going on with Equinox pretty much. Just Gloom plus maim, shield gating. You will, because you're using Gloom, your 2 is actually a whole lot better on Dayform, because Rage will apply a 77% damage vulnerability to enemies, and that 30% speed increase is usually whenever you have Gloom spiced up with the extra Parazon 50% strength. When you do that, the speed increase that they get is really negligible. So if you have a hard target, you actually get a really big damage vulnerability that you can just throw on them and killing enemies that are giving you problems. So yeah, that's well, it's more Dayquinox than anything else, because Nightquinox just kind of isn't useful. There are builds for Nightquinox, but I really wouldn't suggest any of them over using Dayquinox. So take Dayquill, don't take Nightquill. Hopefully you guys enjoy the Steel Path run, and I will see you guys tomorrow.
Scans show Grenier are harvesting Kuva nearby. Set off the alarms to draw them out, then steal their Kuva catalysts. Predictable. As expected, Grenier will shut down the environmental systems, sending modified life support capsules. Use these to sustain your environment or attach Kuva catalysts to begin harvesting. Life support incoming. I've delivered a life support capsule to the area. Activating it while buying more time. Additional life support has arrived. Has just made their first discovery. Keep up the good work. Extraction is available.
just found. They could not do this without them. Tenno, extraction is ready.
Right.
You are a blade. You exist to strike. You strike to win. The lesson ends.